Hey guys! So to everyone who watches my channel, this is probably a little different than what you're used to seeing on here. You're really not used to even hearing my voice, but this is something I've wanted to do for a while, music reviews. So let's take a step away from the guitar and talk about the 10 best rock and metal albums to come out during quarantine. Now, the COVID-19 quarantine can be described in many different ways. Some would suggest we're still in a quarantine. The world is still not completely gone back to normal. Where I live, there's still a mask mandate until 2022. Some would describe the COVID-19 quarantine as just for, a month or two in early 2020 when we really couldn't leave our houses, we couldn't go to work. My definition, however, meets somewhere in the middle. I believe quarantine was really March 2020 to June 2021. I mean, that's when things were at their worst. Mask mandates were effective worldwide, and public events were banned, forbidden, especially concerts. By June of 2021, restrictions got a lot more relaxed. Business started opening up. Mask mandates were dropped in a lot of places, and especially concerts were back in full swing. During this 15-ish months without concerts, musicians were left with a lot of time on their hands. They weren't able to promote their recently released albums. It was probably a financial burden. They used this time without concerts in many creative ways. A lot of musicians became popular on social media through Twitch and vlogging and gaming and such. Many groups took this opportunity to put work into making new music, which led to the release of some spectacular records. Some of these albums were recorded during quarantine, or some were set to release in the early part of the pandemic, and they were expecting to go tour the album and promote it, and they were unable to do that, so it left a different impact. Without further ado, these are my top 10 rock and metal albums to come out during the COVID-19 quarantine. Number 10, Asking Alexandria's Like a House on Fire. Released on May 15th, 2020, Like a House on Fire was seen as Asking Alexandria's worst album by many, including myself. This was a disappointing follow-up to their 2017 self-titled album, which was already a mediocre album, really showing they were stepping away from heavy metal and into a more radio-friendly rock style. Safe to say, I miss Dennis Stoff. At the release of this video, they've already released a follow-up to Like a House on Fire titled See What's on the Inside, which is actually an even worse album. So I guess it gives this one some credit. In reality, I still love Asking Alexandria. It's just, I started listening to them in 2010 when their metalcore sound is what really attracted me. It's hard to watch one of your favorite bands stray further and further away from the style that made you fall in love with them. But there's always hope that they'll fall back into their old roots. Maybe. Someday. Like a House on Fire is not at all a bad album. If I'd never listened to Asking Alexandria before and you threw on this album, I'd probably like it. I was just hoping for something different. Dead Press gave the album a 4 out of 10, stating, "It's a largely generic and forgettable effort." I may not agree with Wall of Sound's 10 out of 10 score, but I agree with what they have to say. The expectations they've only ever tried to live up to are their own. And I admire them for staying true to themselves, and really not giving a fuck what the haters have to say. The greatest gem on this album is the song, They Don't Want What We Want,
Can you feel the hair standing on the back of your neck? Can you feel your heart beating right on your chest?
which shows that they're still capable of being heavy. Number 9, Hollywood Undead's New Empire Volume 2. Released on December 4th, 2020, this album is a perfect example of why two-part records really don't work. Yes, both New Empire Volume 1 and Volume 2 are good albums, but if they had spliced them together into just one album, we would have a great record on our hands. As a fan who's been a part of the Undead Army since the very beginning, I can confidently say this is their worst album. It's still the Hollywood Undead sound that we know and love, but there's not enough of that amazing songwriting to go into the 19 songs on this two-part album. There was some great collaborations with artists like Hyro the Hero, Jacoby Shaddix, Tech Nine, Spencer Charnes. But where the album fell short is creating memorable songs with a replay value. I'm excited to hear them come out and play these songs live. I haven't seen them in a while. My favorite song in the album is Idol. Can't wait to hear them play that. Distorted Sound put it best when they said, "It was honestly surprising to hear a mostly lifeless album emerge from a group as full of piss and vinegar as Hollywood Undead is." But some critics are more praising, like Roxins, who said, "New Empire Volume 2 is Hollywood Undead just like they've always been, and that's just the way they like it." Number 8, Atreu's Baptize.
Wash away my sins, baptized.
Released at the tail end of quarantine on June 4th, 2021, this was Atreu's first attempt at making music without their founding vocalist, Alex Varkatres. I think I said that right. How was it? It was okay. The opening title track, Baptize, shows a glimpse of hope that this is going to be the same great music that they were making over a decade ago. But the rest of the album seems to match the ranks of their more recent releases. It's not their best, but it's certainly not their worst. I really feel like it's the best thing that they've put out in 12 years. It also has some memorable appearances from rock and metal titans like Matt Heafy, Jacoby Shaddix, Travis Sparker, with Brandon Sellers stepping away from the drum set to provide lead vocals along with Mark McKnight. I'm excited to see how they can hone in on this new lineup and hopefully follow up this good album with a great album in the future. I disagree with Kill Your Stereo, who gave the album a 30 out of 100. They said, "I knew what I was getting, expecting little of it going in, but was hoping to be surprised, and ended up with even less." And I'm right in line with Wall of Sound, who said, "I honestly believe this is the band's best work in a long time, and will be enjoyed by fans new and old." Baptize is almost like listening to the debut album of a new band, and I have high hopes for their future, especially with over 2 decades in this music scene. Number 7, Devil Driver's Dealing with Demons. Released on October 2nd, 2020, this album solidifies that Devil Driver found their sound in 2003, and they don't plan on changing it anytime soon. People listen to Devil Driver for that unique groove metal sound, and they get exactly what they expect with a few new things along the way. We see their vocalist Des Fafara experimenting with clean vocals in my favorite song on the album, Wishing.
And if you take my hand from that very lost place, I will lead you through darkness.
While we get a guest appearance from who I assume is his brother on the song You Give Me a Reason to Drink. Dealing with Demons was an improved follow-up to their 2016 release, Trust No One, but not as good as their 2018 country cover album, Outlaws Till the End. Oddly, they're both considered a part 1 of a 2-part album, so I'm excited to see what we're going to get a second part from next. According to Wikipedia, they're supposed to have a part 2 to Dealing with Demons in 2021, but there's only about another month left of 2021 as I film this video, so I don't see that happening. Number 6, Machine Gun Kelly's Tickets to My Downfall.
Don't do fake love, but I'll take some from you tonight.
Say what you will about MGK, but he's really been impressing me over the last couple years. His recent feud with my favorite band, Slipknot, is pretty immature, but when he announced his official emergence into the rock genre in 2019 with the release of the song Why Are You Here, I was sold. After many covers of rock songs and various singles, finally released Tickets to My Downfall on September 15th, 2020 to great critical success. This new rap rock style shows a lot of influence from Blink-182, which coincidentally, the drummer on this album is Travis Barker. The rock and metal world hasn't been welcoming to Machine Gun Kelly, but he's been tiptoeing in this genre since 2013, with being featured in songs and paying homage to many of the greats. Tickets to My Downfall is a collection of punk-inspired tracks with touches of pop and rap along the way, featuring artists like Halsey, Trippie Redd, and even Burt McCracken from The Used. This album is a great stepping stone that can bring many people from outside the rock genre into it. Sputnik Music claims this album is a completely egregious copy and paste of Blink-182's Glory Days. Even if that's true, is that so bad? I think Dwight Schrute puts it best.
You know what? Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery.
Love him or hate him, MGK is here to stay, with his next album already announced for 2022, which has already shown some great potential. Number 5, Trivium's What the Dead Men Say.
What the dead men say, it's just between us what the dead men.
Released on April 24th of 2020, Trivium faced the same issue that Asking Alexandria did with their release that year. They released it right when concerts were banned worldwide. Without the ability to tour and promote their new album, they went right to work on a follow-up which came out 16 months later. Vocalist Matt Heafy used his spare time to gain quite the following on Twitch, doing cover songs and renditions of other songs from various genres. What the Dead Men Say was a great album that deserves a world tour, but unfortunately fell short of their amazing 2017 release, The Sin in the Sentence. Still, this record shows that after 17 years in the metal scene, Trivium is a great force not to be messed with. My favorite song on the album, Catastrophist, really adds to the great catalog of radio-friendly songs by Trivium.
You're a catastrophe. The warm is come to devastate. Catastrophe.
While tracks like Amongst the Shadows and the Stones give us metalheads a reason to bang our heads until our necks fall off. Rockin' Loud praised the album, giving it a perfect 10 out of 10 score, saying every song feels like Trivium is on track to take the top spot on festivals worldwide, with huge choruses, heavy riffs, aggressive drums, and a thick bass tone. What the Dead Men Say has everything, and genuinely gets better and better with every listen. Even Kill Your Stereo, which gave them the worst score, which was 75%, says the band brings in so many strong performances, both vocally and instrumentally, throughout a lot of heavy and energetic metal tunes that fill up the well-written grooves of this new release. What the Dead Men Say is the perfect 9th release in this now 10-album discography, and the new singles are amazing to hear live. Number 4, Avatar's Hunter Gatherer. Released on August 9th, 2020, this album was a great follow-up to their less than favored 2018 release, Avatar Country. Avatar showed great improvement with Hunter Gatherer that compared to their music of the mid-2010s, which really attracted me to them in the first place. The opening single, Silence in the Age of Apes, and my favorite song on the album, When All But Forces Failed, brings that heaviness and craziness that you expect and love from Avatar. We even get a guest appearance from Corey Taylor. I think. I still don't know. I've checked multiple resources. Nothing's saying for sure. I think he does the whistles on A Secret Door. It's said in the lyric video, at least. This album continues to prove that Avatar is a very underrated band, and it's boosted them a little bit further towards the stardom they deserve. After 14 years, this Swedish heavy metal band hasn't lost an ounce of energy, and continues to put everything into their recorded and live performances. If you haven't checked them out yet, do yourself a favor and check out Hunter Gatherer. Number 3, Mushroom Head's A Wonderful Life. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this video. Released on June 19th, 2020, a whole 6 years after their last release, The Righteous and the Butterfly, Mushroomhead came in with a fresh lineup, which included replacing 2 of their 3 vocalists. While not as good as The Righteous and the Butterfly, A Wonderful Life still brings the continuously experimental and industrial sound we've been used to for over 25 years. The opening track, A Requiem for Tomorrow, makes the wait well worth it, while their lead single, Seen It All, fits in perfectly with their catalog of go-to music videos. I'm excited to hear some of these songs live. I've seen these guys more times than I can count, and I've been begging the whole time for some fresh material. I've seen all their new members live and they seem to fit in well, and I'm proud to say the guitarist Tommy Tanks is my friend on Facebook. Mushroomhead may forever be like a world touring local band, playing intimate shows at small venues, but really they deserve a lot more than that. And hopefully the recent record deal with Napalm Records takes them to that next level. Me and the Mushroomhead heads community agree this is one kick-ass album. Number 2, Lamb of God's Lamb of God. Number 2. Released on June 19th, 2020, it was worrisome to hear Lamb of God without their original founding drummer Chris Adler. Luckily there was nothing to worry about, as this self-titled release is ranked by many as their very best. I believe it was their best work in about 8 years, which is very impressive for a band that's been around for over 2 decades. Their lead single, Memento Mori, is one of the best songs they've ever put out. But it also had a music video that foreshadowed the pandemic that we were about to go in when it came out. According to the band, this was completely unintentional, and the video was filmed months before quarantine, but it's still very eerie. Songs like this one and the song Resurrection Man show a more horror-themed music that we've never really heard from Lamb of God before.
I was born in a cemetery and learned to walk on skulls and bones.
But they still bring their familiar style throughout. Lamb of God doesn't stray far from their trademarked all-American heavy metal, which is apparent on tracks like New Colossal Hate and Gears.
Empty actions to fill the time. Commercial gods keep you in line. Industry.
We also get some exciting appearances from Jamie Josta and Chuck Billy. Rolling Stone says the album contains the sort of pile-driving guitar riffs and Olympic medal-worthy drumming the band has perfected over the last 20 years. I couldn't have said it better myself. Number 1. Before we get to my favorite quarantine album, I want to include one very important honorable mention. Bring Me the Horizon's post-human survival horror. The only reason this isn't on my list is because it's technically an EP. Had they thrown on a couple more songs, we would have a full-fledged album on our hands, and it would rank within my top 2 spots on this list easily. I fell in love with Bring Me the Horizon back in 2013, and since then they've strayed further and further away from their original sound. Since then we've seen a more mellow, pop rock, EDM band that's still really good, but nothing compared to what they used to be. Post-human survival horror really showed that they're still capable of being heavy as fuck, and it's a pleasant mix of all the different styles they've played with since 2006. I don't know what to expect from Bring Me the Horizon next, but this EP blew me away as the best material they've put out in 7 years, and it deserves some recognition. Number 1, Static X Project Regeneration.
You want it, you need it, you got it, you got it. You take it, you make it, everything you saw.
My friends, Evil Disco is still alive and well after over 2 decades. With the loss of Wayne Static in 2014, Static X had already been disbanded for a while. I think we all expected the band to be a closed chapter in the history of heavy metal. But out of nowhere in 2019, Static X releases that they're going to reunite with a special, secret, mysterious vocalist who hides behind a mask. It's Etzel Dope, guys. I guarantee it's Etzel Dope. There was plans to tour the world and also release a whole album with leftover vocals from Wayne Static and a bunch of guest vocalists. What we got was something much different, but utterly amazing. Instead of having leftover vocals from Wayne on every song, over half of the lyrics were sung by this new mysterious vocalist known as Zero, also known as Etzel Dope. There was only one song, Dead Souls, that featured a guest vocalist, and Al Jorgensen did an awesome job. songs like Hollow and All These Years did feature leftover vocals from Wayne Static, and they're great. However, my favorite songs like Ostigo Placebo and Terminator Oscillator, they had vocals provided by Etzel Dope, and they are awesome. Like, holy shit, do they rule. The whole album was a great honor on Wayne Static's life. I believe he'd be proud of what his brothers and Static X created without having him at the helm. Sputnik Music calls it a labor of love, which I think is so true. These guys loved Wayne Static and they wanted to honor him. There's also a part 2 expected in the future that should have more leftover Wayne Static vocals and more guest vocals. I couldn't be more excited. So there it is, my top 10 rock and metal albums to come out during quarantine of COVID-19. No one's list is identical, so let me know in the comments how your list differs. What am I kidding? No one's gonna watch this crap. If you've watched until this point, thank you so much for checking it out. I want to do more of these. If you don't know, I have another channel that I'm active on. It's called Courtney Eliz X Beth. We catch online child predators who think they're going to meet a kid off the internet. And we've gotten over 6 arrests in Wisconsin in just 6 months. So if you support a cause like that, go check it out. I put the link in the description. I'll be back with another video here.